Okay, everyone, let's get started. This is actually going to be really exciting. Don't worry, it might go on for a while, but don't be scared. It'll be a lot of fun. So this is crazy because I feel like we've been talking about values for a long time, and here it is. So yeah, so let's get into it. So how's this going to run? I'm going to give a bit of an intro in terms of why we're talking about values now, like what they mean. We're going to go one by one and just give a bit of background to each value, and then we're going to break out and spend some time in teams just doing some exercises, and then we're actually going to do a fun task at the end to try to kind of visualize the values, and then we'll finish up. So yeah, let's get straight into it. I think the first thing I want to talk to everyone about is like, why now? And it's really interesting because I always felt values were a bit kind of cliche and corporate. And I always saw, I was like, oh yeah, values, isn't that the kind of thing that like big companies have? And I think it probably stemmed from working at companies that had values, but they clearly weren't really living them. So I just didn't really ever feel like it meant anything. But actually, Simply Wall Street has grown. What I've realized is that we even have values. Like every company already has values, whether you know it or not, because the values are really actually the collective values of the people that work there. And it's just that they're not formally defined, right? They're just not written down anywhere. And the problem is, and the reason that all these big companies have values is you actually need it, right? You actually need values to keep growing. And as you know, Simply Wall Street's growing, and we're going to keep growing this year. You know, we've got a lot of big plans coming up. And the reality is, for Simply Wall Street to keep growing, we need values. And it's actually as simple as that. It means, for example, that if we had, in theory, two isolated teams who never spoke to each other, which by the way, we hopefully wouldn't have, but let's just use that example. If you had two isolated teams who never spoke to each other, who knew the same information, with the values, you'd hope that they might end up making the same decisions, right? It creates alignments between each other, and it lets us give each other feedback really easily, because you know when we're maybe not quite living up to it. It will make a big difference on how we make decisions together, how we deal with each other, how we deal with our customers, stakeholders, how we recruit new team members, and I guess also how we decide on what's important and less important to work on. You can probably guess this, but we actually started working on these values when Mahesh was here. It was something that he felt very strongly about, and Mahesh has been someone who's seen companies grow, so he's kind of seen why it's so critical. But that was obviously a long time ago, so he probably gives you an idea how long we've been working on these values for. And actually finding the values was quite easy, because you really only had to listen to us talk. And I had a session, I think the first session I had with the kind of coach that I'm working with at the moment, the first session I had with her, she wrote down 3 words from the end of the session. And I think those words were proactive, passion, and learning, or something. And they just kept coming up in conversation, right? So she kind of knew that clearly, there was already a very clear theme there. And so I guess I'm going to now tell a few stories that from my background, and I'll leave it up to you guys to figure out which stories probably relate to which values, right? And then we'll take it from there. So some of you might know these stories because some of you might have seen my AMA, which apparently is going viral. But some people might have not know them. So I'll just run through them, and I think each of them has an interesting piece behind it. The first one is kind of a bit cringe for anyone who does program, but for me, this is how I got into programming. Right, I got into programming at a really young age, kind of like I think I was at 12 when I was at school. And back then there was no internet, So you kind of had to learn programming from books. I wish I had a better book than this, because the books weren't that good. But for me, what was important about learning programming was actually that it's something that I'd never done before. And I just had a goal in mind. Like, I just wanted to create stuff. And I saw these games that people were playing, and we didn't have the games, right? We didn't have any games. So we wanted to create these games. And when we started, and anyone who started programming, you know, your first program is usually like Hello World or whatever. It seems very distant. It seems very distant to be able to go from that to creating like a, you know, super fancy complex game with graphics and sounds and, you know, everything. But the reality is you can get there. And that's, I guess, what for me was so important, was within the space of like 3 years, from going from zero knowledge, we were making games, right? Or I was making games, and it was such a great experience for me. And in a sense, it was probably my first taste of being an entrepreneur, because I distinctly remember one of my best memories was walking into the computer room at school, and the room was full of people queuing up to use the computers to play basically a game that I made, which I think was like a clone of Breakout, if anyone knows what that is. And that feeling is really powerful, where you've made something and you can actually see people enjoying using it. And in a sense, that's at the kind of the core of startups and being an entrepreneur. And I think the other thing, that the lesson from this is the fact that actually the impossible is possible, right? When you start off, it feels unachievable to create these games, especially at that age. But actually, you can create them. You just got to keep working at it and keep learning. So the next story, and this is again, like, you can have a competition to guess what this terrible device is, but this was like the precursor to Palm Pilots and stuff like this. And I don't know how I like migrated to using it, but you could also program these devices, right? This was called a Scion. And the interesting thing with the Scion is there was quite a kind of community of people using them. It was like mostly used by business people, but there was still a lot of other people who used them for some reason. This was a few years later. I think I was age like 16, maybe 17 by now. And the internet had come about by the time I was making software for Scion. And I guess what was important is this was kind of my first taste of actually releasing software to solve a problem, right, on the internet. And that was crazy. Like, you know, initially I was making games, but it was really cool to actually see that those games go online and show up on these websites, and to have people download them. And then from this, I also started to make software for Windows. And one piece of software that I made became really popular. And again, like, I was like this kid, I had no idea what I was doing. But it really taught me a lot about what an individual can do if you just focus and just try to work on something. And it started to teach me a bit about the idea of solving problems with software, not just making games, right? Like this software that I made, the idea was that you could save real estate on your screen, real estate being like the space, not property, because you didn't have the start bar at the bottom. And that was a problem that I had, and turned out at the time heaps of other people had that problem, because they also had tiny screens that were only like 640 resolution or whatever. So it solved the problem, and people loved using it. Now the other story is a funny one, which is bin collecting. And this is really random. When I was about 18 after school, I ended up going to work in France on a campsite. And when I turned up to this campsite, I knew I was going to work there, but I didn't know what I was going to be doing. And and that basically you just got assigned to a kind of a team. And the team that I was assigned to was basically the garbage collection team. And so when I first heard that, I was like, yeah, that doesn't sound too exciting. But what was really interesting was that the team of people, that I worked with, which is like kind of four other people, we just spent all day going around the camp collecting the bins and emptying them. But it was actually the most fun, like that I can think of, doing some of the most, I guess you could say, disgusting work, maybe. And what made it fun was the people, right? The people were just super fun, despite the fact that we were, getting covered in like stinky food all day. It didn't matter because everyone on the team enjoyed it. And what it really taught me was that the people you work with have such a huge impact on what it's like to be doing anything. And in that instance, even something that normally would be considered like a huge chore and something that people would probably pay not to do, actually was super fun, and we actually loved it. We look forward to it every day. And so I think, what's the lesson from this? Like, in all work, there's stuff that's not fun, right? I have side projects that I build, which I do for fun primarily, but sometimes I get stuck on them and that's not fun. It's super annoying. I'll spend like half a day fixing a bug. And it really comes down to that attitude as well, right? So it's the people you work with, but it's also the attitude you have towards what you do that makes such a big difference. The last one is another funny story, which is, I guess, how I learned to invest and learned to invest in the stock market. Not with that dude walking out near the derrick, but so when I first started investing, I kind of wanted to learn everything. And when you really want to learn about investing, it's quite challenging, because the more you read, the more your reading list grows, and your sort of to-do list of learning, it grows exponentially the more you do. It's like actually hard to tick it off, right? And just gets bigger and bigger. And the more I read, I was like, oh my God, how am I going to put all of this stuff into practice? And I haven't even finished my reading. And you kind of end up finding it hard to what I would now call deduplicate, in that often you're reading about, say, two different subsubjects, or what appears to be different subjects. Only later on you realize that both those things are actually the same, or they're trying to achieve the same thing. But at the time when you're learning, you don't realize it, and you just think, oh my God, this is so overwhelming. I've literally got to look at every possible ratio, for example, to assess this company, when it actually turns out you only need to look at one. And so that was really my early experience with that kind of feeling, again, of being overwhelmed, trying to learn a subject and put it into practice. And you also realize as you go on that journey, and I realized this, that a lot of the people that are teaching you online are also learning themselves. They also have not figured it out. And that's a kind of a scary realization as well. We hear that a lot in user interviews. You hear people saying, oh yeah, I bought this stock last year, but that didn't work, and I don't use that technique anymore. So that when people say that, like, that's actually what's happening. So one of the first companies I bought was in the UK. So I started off in the UK, and it was a company called Tullow Oil, and it still exists today, but it's not great, not a great performing stock. And I bought it based mostly off a recommendation off the Motley Fool. So I was using the Motley Fool a lot. I was, kind of consuming a lot of what they put out. And they kept recommending the stock again and again. Yeah, Tullow Oil. I was like, okay, started reading about it. And that was the first stock I bought. That stock had a P ratio of 17,000, right? So, now I look at that, I'm like, yeah, that says a lot. But at the time, I didn't really think about it too much. And there was just so much expectation baked into that narrative, that story. And not surprisingly, the whole thing just like totally crashed. You can go back in time and look at what happened there. And then what I found interesting was that after that point, they just stopped mentioning it, right? They just like stopped talking about it. And I was like, huh? Like, hey, what about that recommendation you were making? Like, what should I do with that? I think I still hold it today. Like, I haven't even sold it. If I go into my UK brokerage, I can still see it there, like worth almost nothing. And that's what gave me this realization that with investing, it really is your own journey, right? It's your own learning journey that you're going on, like almost anything in life. And you try to take these kind of shortcuts. You know, those shortcuts are part of the learning. There's nothing wrong with trying to do it, but at the end of the day, you know, people like the Motley Fool, they, in a sense, don't really care about my success, right? Their success is something very different. Another sort of second early mistake that I made was also in an oil and gas company that again came from a tip from a friend, right? And this was when I was working in the industry. So, you know, you had these kind of inside people saying, oh, check this company out. This is an oil and gas company in Tanzania, which is why this photo is a bit more relevant. And it was a tiny company, like much smaller than simply Wall Street is now. And so again, I got this tip off and I started researching it. It's tiny. And I kind of got stuck into the web of these like forums and, you know, and that even makes it worse because there's always people on there who are super biased because they've already bought the stock talking about it. It's kind of the equivalent of hot copper bit in the UK. And this company, again, it still exists now and it still earns less money than simply Wall Street does now. And I'm talking about when I bought it was like, I mean, you know, this is way before I even started thinking about simply Wall Street. So it was just such a funny story. And what's funny with both those two examples I'm talking about, I'm very happy that I made those mistakes, right? You have to make those mistakes. Like they yeah, sure, it's annoying to lose some money, but they actually give you so much learning. So in the long run, if I didn't have those, I wouldn't be able to look back and say, yeah, I made those mistakes and learned from it. Cool. So I'll leave it there. You can tell each story I haven't doesn't particularly directly relate to one value, but actually a lot of them can relate in different ways. So I'll leave it up to you guys to think about, yeah, which value, which story is kind of behind. Yeah, let's get on because I've talked for ages already. Ooh, big reveal. What's the plan, Emma? Are we just going to talk through each one? Or are we going to go to the next slides?
Yeah. So I suppose we can talk through, these are our values, and then we'll go into detail. So you can just about.
Cool. Well, I'll read them out. Not that people can't read, but so first value, this is, by the way, no particular order to these values, and we're going to go much deeper in a bit so you get to hear about them. But first one is become the master of your craft. Second one is fall in love with the problem. Third one is enjoy the ride. Fourth one is dream big, ship small, learn fast. And the fifth one is dig deep to find the gem. So some of them might seem a bit confusing, so we're going to try and talk through them now, I guess. So the first one, I think, who's Nandini up first?
Yeah, that's me. So our first value is become the master of your craft. What does this mean? Well, in pure definitive terms, it means having comprehensive knowledge and skills in what you do at Simply Wall Street. There's this awesome book I read called Mastery by Robert Greene, where the author explores the lives of many historical masters, such as Darwin, Mozart, Da Vinci, and explains how their mastery is attainable for everyone. He's got this really great quote in the book. You must understand the following. In order to master a field, you must love the subject and feel a profound connection to it. Your interest must transcend the field itself and border on the religious. When it comes to masters of their craft, we often see the result, but we rarely see what it takes to get there. So when we actually unpack this, we see that mastery results from a combination of factors, such as purpose, deliberate practice, performance, where it's tested and measured, and building on setbacks. It's easy to take shortcuts and apply hacks, but this doesn't help us become experts in our fields. On a daily basis, this might seem like it doesn't look big or impressive, but that's okay. It'll often feel like you're failing. What often feels like struggle and frustration is often skill development and growth. And what looks like no recognition is often the price you have to pay to discover your best work. In other words, what looks like failure is often the incremental improvement in your ability and your craft. Next, please. So what do these behaviors look like at Simply Wall Street? Well, for the team, it's firstly about possessing that burning curiosity about your function and your role, understanding the skills required to deliver and continuously wanting to level up your craft. Extend your knowledge to unknown territory. See your work as something alive, study and absorb its details to the point where you can feel it expressed effortlessly. Secondly, in mastering your craft, you need to demand high standards and quality output from yourself and your team. Taking personal responsibility for your work is key. This all comes down to how you pursue your craft just as much as what you're able to achieve. How prepared was I? How does the quality of this work reflect my values and standards? How could I tweak one thing to get a better outcome? Am I proud of what I delivered? Is my manager and squad proud of it? Mastering your craft is also about accepting feedback with open arms. Surrender that ego, allow others to input their perspective. This sometimes means replacing the pursuit of perfection with excellence and applying dedicated practice to slowly, steadily, and consistently develop your skills. Give yourself permission and scope to nourish yourself. And through feedback and incremental skill development, you'll get there. Finally, we should aspire to learn from mistakes positively. Mistakes give us the chance to stop, evaluate, and review the approach or path we've been taking. This type of mindset enables us to take more calculated risk and to bounce forward from setbacks more quickly. Next, please. So for the customer, it's about shipping an experience that is quality for them, regardless of whether they're free or paid subscribers. It's also about ensuring what we produce always exceeds our customers' expectations, and we don't rest on our laurels. This means we are proactively looking for ways to improve our customers' experience and continue to tackle their jobs to be done, no matter how hard they are. We also aim to help our customers become better investors by giving them tools to refine their investing craft. Our craft becomes our pride, which in turn becomes customers' pride. Next, over to Javi.
Thank you. Can we go to the next one? Right, thank you. So, fall in love with the problem. At Simple Wall Street, we are on a mission to empower every retail investor in the world to make the best decisions possible. And that, I think it's we all agree that's a big, scary, huge problem to solve. But it's fun too. That we will leave it for another value. So what does fall in love with the problem mean? So I think this value covers three main topics. The first of the topics, and I think this picture represents very well, is that we should aim for the root of the problem. So it is easy to get distracted by the green accessible leaves, the shiny branches, but the problem that we are trying to solve may be way, way deeper. So the idea is that we should keep researching, understanding what the customers' pains are, or what the real problem is, where our users spend most of the time. We need to get data, validate hypotheses, reassess, relearn. And just to be clear here, I use the product as a problem, but this should apply to any problem that we have. Engineering, marketing, growth, should be the same. If we can go to the next slide, please. So the second topic this value covers would be about, here was inspiring, can I take it? So every little detail matters. So you need to become like a bonsai master. So bonsai masters, what they do is that they look, nurture, and look after your little tree. At some point, you understand, each leaf, each branch. You trim those branches that are not necessary. You let some parts grow, and that's part of how do you understand better and better the problem. We don't need to have a big tree. We just need to find the perfect tree that solves real problems. I think that's important. Can we go to the next slide, please? And I think the third topic that this value represents is that by digging into the problem, we might find out that there's not only one tree, but a variety, just like our customers. So we shouldn't have preconceived views of the solutions or what the ideal result is. Actually, we should be comfortable just discovering and adjusting to what we learn on the way, and keep trying, learning, and adapting as we find different problems or new problems that we need to fix. Can we go to the next one, please? In terms of team behaviors, this value represents about getting great understanding of the problem. So it's about slowing down your decisions. dig into the problem again, hypotheses, run them. It's okay, we need to understand, and this is a slow cook problem, like the bonsai master. So you need to understand your internal customers. We might be talking about the platform customers. We might be talking about that performance bottleneck that we need to fix. We need to slow down, understand all different factors, and then we can apply the right solution. And you need to have thirst for knowledge and information. So you're gonna get knowledge. You're gonna keep learning that. So the more they know, the better decisions you will make. In terms of our customers, I think it's important that we have empathy. We care and give our customers the feeling that their problems are important to us. We need to bring in other perspectives, like the different trees that we showed before. Not all users are the same. Not all users have the same appetite for risk, and they might have different problems. So it's okay, and we need to know that. And the last one I think is we don't assume we understand the problem. We need to dig and understand, and we keep revising out and revisiting our decisions, and that's okay. Next slide, please. Oh, I think this is Imer.
Thanks, Xavi. Next slide, please. All right, so the other value we have is enjoy the ride. So what does that mean for us? Enjoy the ride means we want people to come to work at Simply Wall Street and to enjoy coming to work at Simply Wall Street. It is all of our responsibility to own this for ourselves and for each other. And what this means in practice is coming to work with a positive growth mindset, thinking of ways in which we can be helpful, fostering a safe and inclusive environment where it is okay to fail. We supported each other with constructive feedback that progresses a situation forward. And it means that we work hard to achieve our mission, but we also have fun along the way. We show respect and compassion to our co-workers by assuming people are coming from a good place and welcoming different views and opinions. Next slide, please. For our customers, it means we want to create a product that delights them and is enjoyable to use. We listen and empathize with them. We use illustrations or colloquial language in our brand and messaging to personify who we are. And that's enjoy the ride. Next slide, please.
I think that's me again. Like the manga one. Next slide, please. So, dream big, shoot small, learn fast. What does dream big, shoot small, learn fast value mean? I relate very much with what Al explained about gaming and learning about computing. So I think we all had big dreams at some point in our lives, and when you think about them at that point in time, they feel like huge mountains to climb, and they feel that far ahead, which is scary shit. Like moving abroad, living a life. But no matter how big your dream is, it all starts with one step after another. And I think this value is what it represents. This value is the action value. If we take, for example, the product, use the product as an example, it is about recognizing that a working product provides us the ability to learn and understand user behavior faster. Of course, we don't want to build any product. This value represents the sense of rigorous prioritization and the art, I call it art, of defining a minimum viable product, identifying the critical subset of features that will solve a user problem. And the value represents as well the ability to draw a final vision and being able to split that down into smaller milestones and deliver them incrementally while learning on the way. Another part is that this value is about being ambitious at the same time that being realistic. and keeping a growth mindset. So we want to have a mindset of this is possible versus the we can do. Can we go to the next slide, please? And the last part is that I think it's, and I'll mention it, is it's okay to fail, and actually it's part of the shipping incrementally. Is like sometimes we're gonna fail, and it's okay to fail. So we are dreaming big, so we accept failure as part of getting to the destination, and we learn to embrace the failure as a part of the process. So in terms of team behaviors, we need to prioritize to build a meaningful product. And I think that's an art. So it's really understanding what that minimal subset of functionality that's going to provide us a strong signal about whether we are right or wrong. In regards to the growth mindset, is we learn the way, and we fail on the way, and we relearn, and we retry, and we rehypothesize. That's okay. And we need to have comfort with speed over precision in some cases. So these implies as well a lot of experimentation in order to get there. Next slide, please. In regards to customer behaviors, we want to release incrementally with quality. That's quality for our customers is paramount. So we want to have that quality, and we need to remember that our customers dream big as well. So they have big dreams, and we want to provide a platform that allows them to accomplish those dreams. So that's part of our journey. Next slide, please. The last value, I think, to Nandini.
Cool, thanks, Javi. Our fifth and final value is dig deep to find the gem. We couldn't get a picture of Jet digging, maybe next time. Next, please. So what does this value mean? Within all the detail, within all the chaos and noise is a simple solution to any problem. It won't be easy. You have to persevere and get your hands dirty to find these gems. We live in an age where the accumulation of information is becoming more diverse, complex, and noisy, and there is a need to dig deep to find valuable information, insights, and get a competitive advantage. This is what we aim to achieve for our customers of the Simply Wall Street platform. Find and strike investment gold. Next, please. So how do we personally live this value at Simply Wall Street? It's about starting every action, project, or even task with a clear objective. Why are you embarking on this journey? Do you have a well-formed hypothesis? You need to be making intentional decisions to embark on this journey that has the potential for great outcomes. Part of going on this journey is being uncomfortable with the unknown. You will need to have an experimental mindset. You'll also possess a comfort of operating at all levels, staying connected to the details, auditing frequently, and are skeptical when metrics and anecdotal evidence differ. Once on this journey, it's about sustaining resilience in the face of difficulty, as the prize or outcome is well worth that squeeze. No task is beneath you. Sometimes this means trying to find a simple solution to a difficult problem, and this could mean taking a step back and slowing down to get a better perspective on the challenge at hand. Next, please. For our customers, this means that we don't jump to give recommendations or answers, but look to provide them with reliable tools and ways for them to find these nuggets themselves. This has been our and the company's vision from day one. We recognize that it is a long road for our customers, so we go about providing enriching sources of information and data which are unbiased and help them to find value themselves so they can feel empowered to make informed decisions and also be proud of the work they've done to build their own portfolio.
Yeah, this is really good. I think everyone did such a good job. It's not like, you know, from now on everything changes with Simply Wall Street. These like values, you know, take probably a while to kind of get used to using them, get used to thinking about them and what we're doing. But hopefully this has been really helpful for everyone. I'm really impressed with the way everyone's approached it. So like I said, I was always so scared that the values were super cliche and corporate. I think we've done a pretty good job at showing they don't need to be like that. So yeah, I hope everyone can find these useful and they can help us take Simply Wall Street to the next level. So thanks a lot, everyone.
And if you guys have any feedback I want to share with us, we are happy to hear from you, and then how to implement these values in the future. Just reach to us and talk to us, because we want to apply them and use them on a daily basis. So any feedback or ideas are more than welcome.
And if you have any other ideas for other images that spring to your mind in the shower, then shout them out. So
I'm sure Peter will come up with some great ones during his bedtime reading.
Bedtime reading of Datadog. Yep.
Love it. All right, thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
great work.
Thank you so much, guys.
Bye bye.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
See you guys.